to heal because a lot happened. Like, he physically abused me. He was physically abusive, verbally. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and say I ain't got a big mouth. I do have a big mouth, but a big mouth doesn't warrant a slap just because you don't like what you hear. Do you know what I mean? A big mouth doesn't warrant, you know, making someone feel this small. Like, do you know what I mean? And it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, so when we was filming, those were the things I was going through, but I never showed it because I put up this facade. You know, even my friends, I've only recently started to express what I went through with them recently, and they were livid. They were fuming. They were just like, what the fuck? Like, but it's because I guess it comes from also my culture and my upbringing. Being a Nigerian girl, you don't discuss what goes on in your household. You're trained and you're taught to whatever happens in your house, it happens in your house, and it's a bad.
You guys have seen this show on YouTube called Full Disclosure. It's quite a spicy show. It's quite a spicy show, but it deals with really, really difficult issues that are really tough to talk about within our community in a very raw and upfront way, right? And that's what I guess I like about it. And the last episode that I watched, although I need to catch up today, was about two influencers. One, you know, my fave, Lani Good, and also another influencer called Esther. And I think they both were members on another show run by the same production company called Backchat. Now, they basically had like a sit down and talked about a guy that they dated. They both dated, and the times like overlapped. And it was quite a disturbing conversation, right? So it turned out that the guy that they both dated was abusive to both of them in different ways. One of them had like physical abuse, and the other one had like more like mental abuse and everything like that. And it was just really difficult. And now this guy, you know, he is an influencer himself. He was named, so it's out there. His name is Mark Cuban, and according to the show, what was said in the show, there have been a few girls that have saying similar things, that they've experienced similar things with him. Now, Esther, who was actually dating him at the time, and I think this was back in 2019, she said, you know, when she was ready to talk about it, like she went through like a very difficult time, and then, you know, I think she like bought him a car. She, what do you call it? I think he moved into her house and everything like that. Bear in mind, she's got a young daughter as well, kind of thing. And like, she basically spoke to some of, you know, her peers, like Castillo and I think another guy as well, and told them about it. And they kind of like locked him off and stopped working with him. And I thought that was really interesting because you don't see that a lot in our community. So I just wondered, like, had you seen it? What are your thoughts? Do you think in this kind of, you know, sea of cancel culture, what do you think, how should we as a community deal with someone like Mark Cuban?
Ooh.
Big questions there.
Yeah. What do we have apart from what are the headline things that he did when it comes to abuse?
Physical, mental, a lot of kind of like derogatory talk, that sort of thing, sleeping with multiple girls, financial abuse as well. So this is a thing as well. It's interesting, as you know, as we get older, we see like different trends of what, like, or different labels on things, you know. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't, like, think back in our day, you wouldn't even think like if you're buying stuff for a guy and he's manipulating you, that like it's physical abuse, but that's what it's kind of called nowadays. So yeah, that sort of thing. But it wasn't, I think Esther maybe went through this for about a year, but there was other girls that he was doing sorts of things to. And I think there's a part 2 tonight, so I think the plot thickens. I think he may be sharing people's nudes and things like that as well. Yeah.
What does he do? And what does he do?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
All of that allegedly in the bubble, allegedly.
What and his role in the community is what?
He's an influencer as well. He's been on Backchat and a few of these other shows. So
he's like a PT by profession.
Say it again.
Is he a PT?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know.
I know that he's a buff dude, plenty muscles, and is quite popular.
Never
For
heard of him.
me, what stood out was how they were describing the abuse. I actually thought that was really interesting, and I hope like lots of young girls that were listening were actually taking in the steps that he used. Like, so there's the talking about other people, like slagging them off. So you're kind of he goes in straight with trauma bonding, like girls that you probably don't really like. He's like, yeah, they don't like you too. Isolation, being very close to you in proximity. So after a while, as Esther described it, it's like it's not like I've asked him to move in, but
Mm,
he's moved in. And I have a few friends that that's happened to. They haven't said come and live with me, but the person never left. So it's like before you know it, you've got a man in your house and he has all of the stuff, and then you're kind of like you're given a key because he may be locked up, and then before you know it, he's living with you. And it was just how she described it. I was like, yeah, that's like people need to think about that. That is definitely an abusive trait, and the talking about other people, and then also borrowing money or you being obligated to buy them things that you don't actually have the financial means for. And then when the payment comes in that Lani Good has gone through, then the person seems to like move on or disappear or you're left with bills. Like I thought that was a good thing that they were talking about it. But I really want to see the community of black men hold him to task.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I'm going to draw you out, Uncle Kojo. If you feel that black men do enough in the community to hail out, hold accountable other black men that are seen to be doing problematic things.
Accountability to men is pulling somebody aside and talking to them. Accountability to women sounds like you don't want us to do everything publicly. But you have to understand, yeah, men, our thing is about making your it's like what what's his name? Pound Sterling done, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a moment that he actually physically done in person with that guy. Him telling us the story, you know what I mean? Like for me, it's like you've done what you've done. Why did we need to know that? Why did we need to know that? If you've spoken to him, come online if you feel like that's where you want to talk to him. For me, but if you've spoken to him, well, none of us know who this guy is. None of us know. We don't even know if the story is real. Let's just have it right? So my point is, if I've given a homeless person some money, do I need to come online and go, hey guys, I've just given this? Do you know what I mean? Like for me, you've done what you've done, right? In this scenario, I feel like there's lines that I think that can't be crossed, yeah. And there's too many lines in this one for me that's just been crossed. Physical abuse, mental abuse, calling her ugly and all the other stuff, isolating her as well, which is a very, very big thing. Yeah, people isolating you so that the people you've got no support system. You know what I mean? That those people are, for me, are some of the worst people that you can think. Those are the things that you draw for someone out publicly. For me, like it has to be public information, because if you don't, you are also part of harming other people that aren't aware of this, man.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's not. I think it's less about women wanting just like a public hung drawn and quarter for like just for that social attention, the drama. It's more the fact that it's so rare, which is why there was such a big furor around Will Smith slapping in defense of his wife, where some people react like, oh my God, we don't often get that in our community, where someone's actually showing that type of, I mean, we won't go into that. But however, it's more about, it seems so co-signed to have multiple women, to be controlling, to be this in our music, in our culture, unfortunately, in the loudest thing parts of our culture, not everything, not claiming all of it, but in the loudest parts of our culture, it's those type of things that men do that it is that pull aside, I told man behind the scenes, but then the behavior never changes. The behavior never changes, and it continues. The cycle repeats. So sometimes it is just like for once, like your friends, why is there no, maybe not friends, but just people just say, no, we denounce this behavior because this, that, and the other, and having public conversations about it more, and whether it's on their podcast, on their platforms, less of just talking nonsense, but it's like, these are the situations that are happening to us as men. This is what we need to do. Because the minute a man, like Sideman went through a lot, speaking on behalf of women, he gets called a simp, and all that type of stuff. And it just, then they get undermined and said they,
I think though, as men, what we consider is if we do something publicly, yeah, we got to be, we have to calculate every possible response.
I don't think that's just a man thing, though.
No, it's not just a man thing. But I'm saying to you, primarily, we don't do too much talking. Yeah, that's not our thing. Hands get thrown real quick. Yeah, women are surprised when they get hit. Men ain't surprised because it's part of our process. So if I'm drawing someone out publicly, I've got to now be prepared for him to physically come
Okay,
hit
I
me.
understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when people are saying about accountability, it's not men. That's what I'm saying to you. It's how men are. It's how we do it. If this whole public thing is what people can see is okay. Well, it's good to see that this is what men are doing with each other. That's fair enough. But whoever does that has to now be prepared that man's gonna come see you in any sort of facet, any. So I look great coming publicly and be like, yeah, but none of you are going to be around when my man comes to butt me. And it's not even about being afraid. Is this something that needs to be?
It's the reality.
I understand what you're saying. Like I suppose I didn't think of it like that. I think for me, because this person is a public figure and they're going around doing things and it's commonly known what they're doing, I think him being held accountable publicly is letting people know publicly that your public behavior is not accepted. So I totally understand what you've just said about why you've got to think in those ways, because it could lead to something violent. And do you want to go there in this day and age and at this stage of your life? I totally get all of that. I hadn't actually thought of it that way before, but I literally, for me, why women often say that person should be held accountable is because they're not. And if they're just told something on the side, to the public, it looks like that behavior that they've been demonstrating is acceptable.
See,
it isn't acceptable.
The sad part, though, is there's people that are responsible for things like this called the fucking police, right? Or the government and stuff like that. But now we've been told as men to police these situations, right? And the thing is, I'm telling you, there's loads of men that think various things, of course, but we all understand with our conversation that if we go and do X, Y, and Z, be prepared, yeah, for all possible outcomes. There's people out there that don't do too much talking, yeah, and then now because people want me to publicly come out and say, denounce this guy or whatever, I've now got to put my family at risk. I've now got to put all this up. There's things that are going through it. So I think as men, before we make any move, we size up the whole situation. And one of the things that we think about is, a reaction to what I've said. It's part of our process. So
I do think that does work both ways. I think like maybe I think it depends where you're from, right? Do you know what I mean? Like from what I know from Esther, she's got a little bit of a road background, so people could come for her easily. Do you know what I mean? Like violence against women on women is very, very real as well, kind of thing. I just think that what he has been, by not being publicly held accountable for his behavior, he's been able to hide in plain sight. So he's been able to continue to operate, and actually, because what it's alleged is that he particularly targets influencer type girls anyway. So he's been allowed to stay in those spaces, we have that kind of access because he hasn't been called out. Now, there's a clip that's on social at the moment of him essentially threatening another girl on another show, basically. And he wasn't, and everybody done nothing.
Yeah.
They did no one, and that is a actual visual example of what tends to happen. That you see something or something happens, and then because everybody is thinking about either themselves, and I don't mean I'm not trying to point fingers or anything like that, but you protect self first. That's what people mentally do, and then they don't know how to react in a situation, so they do nothing. So then what happens is that person just gets validated in his behavior because he isn't challenged, and then continues the cycle again and again, and more people get hurt in the process. That's what tends to happen. So it's just like, I don't know if it's necessarily the complete solution, but I definitely like take, part of what you're saying, Auntie Farah, is that if you're in the public eye, then you need to be dealt with in a public manner. Do you know what I mean? I think that works for me. That tracks for me for sure.
I was going to say that. Go on, Auntie. Go, Nana. You haven't spoken.
No, I was going to say I lean that way as well. That I think the public nature that he faces and the women that he has been abusing, he needs a public outing. I absolutely hadn't thought of it like Uncle Kojo had said as well. That's a very valid point. But then also £2 sterling actually talking about how he actually dealt with somebody being rude to the mother of their child. I appreciate that, because that sets the tone for younger guys to be like, actually, we don't stand for this. I think when an older when an elder says something, when an older's actually is like, we don't go for this, they set tones. And you kind of need more people. It doesn't have to be actually like current or naming folks. I think to just say, how I deal with things around me is, this is how you conduct yourself. I appreciate that. And I do get there is a real threat of violence. I get it. I forever have this being told to me from my husband when I want to fly into a couple having a fight, because I'm like, we got to protect the woman. He is like, you flying off to go and protect this woman. Who's the big black guy that now has to go and fight everybody? Like, and it's that thing of, I don't think about it at the time, and I have been warned about this numerous times. But there's something in me that's the injustice. I want to fight, but I get it. It's very different for a man, because then all attention goes on to you, and then you have to be the big bad fighter, and all of the shit that comes with that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely I hadn't even thought of it like that as well, honestly. But what also could happen if if it's not a public calling out, it could be remove that person from a situation. He shouldn't be on back chat again. He shouldn't be getting work. He shouldn't be, because that is a silent cosign. If this story comes out and then the next day he's at all the events that that we frequent, he's on guest list here, guest list there, then he's rolling with so-and-so artist, so-and-so actor, and still in the community out there, that's co-signing his behavior. So what needs to happen is that he's removed from these lists, and then explain that. And I think remove the kind of embarrassment, because we understand when people are embarrassed, anything can happen. That's the biggest thing. Pride and ego getting damaged is over for some people. But so then what it is, removing from the community, removing from those places, affect his bag in a certain way, so that is understandable. You can't get away with this, and we're not going to align with. I think that's what that's an alternative way to do it. Remove him
but at this point, it is an allegation, isn't it?
And and this is a wider conversation, not just about this guy, because it is allegedly at this point.
It is allegedly. It definitely is allegedly. But even Esther said something in that on the show. If you have tens of people saying something, there's something there. And I'm not saying that is the law, and things shouldn't be investigated and looked at. But if you've got tens of people, and I said this about some other dodgy characters.
No,
there we go.
If you've got tens of people saying the same thing and they don't personally have a connection, but their stories are the same, you've got to kind of think there's some truth in that.
And then can I just add as well, just like the police point as well, it's just like often, especially Black women, are not heard by the police. No action is taken. We're not treated the same. There's like this new law that they're trying to get in.
Valerie's Law.
Yeah, that's it, kind of thing, to make sure that Black women are treated and believed when they say that something has happened and action is taken. And that is the unfortunate situation that we're in. And it's just like, when Esther was speaking, she talks about her culture being Nigerian, and you know, the culture is that you don't say you don't air your public laundry. Do you know what I mean? You don't say anything, and you should just be grateful that you've got a man there anyway. Do you know what I mean? And just take it. How bad is it going to be? You know? And it took her. She had to go through her own personal healing, and I doubt she's finished, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because when you go through these things, it's a lifelong thing usually, you know, and she had to make the decision to kind of like, you know, talk about it. And then once she did, then she starts finding about how many other women that were affected by the same person. So, you know, it's just usually in these kind of things, there's often a pattern of behavior. And what I would like is for, if that pattern is spotted earlier, then it can be intercepted and, do you know what I mean, redirected into something else.
Yeah.